My name is Lennox Hawthorne. I'm 29, the youngest son of a family that wears wealth like armor and silence like a code. While my brother Rowan dazzled investors and married into influence, I rebuilt our aging lake house by hand, one leaking pipe and unpaid tax at a time. They called me practical. What they meant was forgettable. For as long as I can remember, I've been the Hawthorne who fixes things, quietly, invisibly. I didn't expect a thank you. But I never expected this either. A wedding I wasn't invited to. A month later, a call for $75,000. And beneath it all, a lie so precise it cut deeper than betrayal. What I uncovered next wasn't just a family secret. It was a crime, with my name all over it. Rain hit the windshield like static. I flicked the wipers once. Then again. Lake Washington blurred into shadow outside the glass. The Jeep groaned as it turned down the gravel driveway of Draven Blackwood's cabin, my uncle. Lights were on. Fireplace flickering through the window. Inside, it smelled like bourbon, cedar, and detachment. I can't wait for Rowan's wedding tomorrow, I said, tossing the envelope onto his kitchen table. It'll be nice to see everyone again. He didn't look up. Silence. Then, the wedding was last week. My spine went cold. What? He finally met my eyes. No apology. Just tiredness. Or fear. Maybe both. They moved the date. The envelope still sat on the table. I hadn't even sealed it. Inside was a handwritten note, a gift card to a wine estate Rowan liked, and a vintage cufflink set I'd kept since Dad passed. Useless now. I stepped back. No one told me? Draven exhaled. They didn't want drama. I laughed. One sharp bark. You mean me. I'm the drama. He didn't correct me. Outside, thunder rolled. I pulled my phone out. Opened Instagram. The photos were everywhere, hashtags, filters, perfection. Rowan in a slate gray tux, his new wife glowing in lace, mom clutching champagne. All of them smiling like a goddamn magazine cover. Not a single trace of me. A quote hit me then, something Mom used to say when she wanted peace over truth: silence keeps the family whole. This wasn't silence. This was erasure. I barely remembered driving away. The tire spat gravel as I peeled out of the driveway. My knuckles white on the wheel. By the time I reached the lake house, it was pitch black. The air was sharp with pine. I didn't turn on the lights. Just sat in the dark, the old wood of the house creaking like a nervous heartbeat. I opened the group chat, Hawthorne Inner Circle. Last message, let's meet at the lodge Friday. Discuss lake house stuff. Keep it small. Dated 2 weeks ago. I wasn't included. Not even tagged. I stared at the words, then at the only picture from the wedding that made my breath stop, Rowan and Mom on the dock, smiling. Behind them, a man in black, blurred, standing too still. His eyes locked on the camera. Or maybe on me. I remembered that man. 3 months ago. Early morning. He stood at the edge of the trees while I was fixing the gutters. Never introduced himself. Just watched. My fingers tightened around the phone. Something shifted in my stomach. Not anger. Dread. The next morning, I drove back to the city, pretending nothing cracked. I wore my usual uniform, gray button-down, black jeans, boots that had seen more dirt than pavement. At my building's lobby, the receptionist glanced up. "Your brother dropped by last week," she said casually. I froze. "Rowan?" "Yeah. Said he was looking for you." I smiled. Guess I wasn't invited to that either. She laughed politely, not getting the edge in my voice. Upstairs, I tossed my keys on the counter. Made coffee. Burned my tongue. The taste meant nothing. The wedding had happened. The family had moved on. The photos were posted. The narrative set. But the absence, that was real. There's a difference between being forgotten and being removed. One is accident. The other is architecture. A week passed. Then two. Then my phone rang. Rowan. I stared at the screen. I could hear his voice already, charming, urgent, reasonable. The kind of voice that convinces people to look away. I let it ring. Picked up at the last second. "Hey," he said. "Hope you're good." He didn't ask about the wedding. Instead, he went straight to the ask. "We're in a bit of a jam." "The restaurant." "Long story short, we need a short-term bridge, $75,000. Just for a month. I'll pay you back. With interest." Silence. He added, "I wouldn't ask if it weren't serious." I didn't speak. Just stared at the spot on the wall where sunlight hit a crack in the paint. Rowan kept talking. Filling space. Making it normal. Like we were still brothers. Like I hadn't been deleted. "I know you've got the funds. You're the responsible one." I almost said yes. Almost. But something in his voice didn't match. He sounded rehearsed. And scared. That's when I knew this wasn't about a loan. This was about leverage. If they erased me once, what else have they already taken? I didn't sleep that night. Not because of Rowan's call. But because of what he didn't say. The lake house walls held sound too well. Every creak echoed like footsteps. Every gust of wind tapped the windows like fingers. My body stayed still, but my mind wouldn't. Silence has weight when it follows betrayal. By morning, I had replayed his voice 100 times. "We're in a jam. It's urgent. Just a month." I poured coffee with hands that didn't shake, but only because I wasn't surprised. Disappointed? Sure. But never surprised when someone I trusted drew blood with a smile. Some people use love like a rope. You don't realize it's a noose until it's too late. I opened my laptop. Bank login. Savings, $103,000. Retirement, untouched. My mind ran the math. Could I afford $75,000? Yes. Should I? Hell no. But Rowan knew the old script still worked. Responsible one. Stable. Don't ask questions. I closed the laptop. But I couldn't close the loop. I drove to the restaurant. Rowan wasn't there. Surprise. A manager named Kelsey met me at the door. She looked about 23, overdressed for a lunch shift. Makeup too perfect. "We're between menus," she said. "Short-staffed. Chef walked last week." "Why?" She blinked. Stress. Her eyes flicked to the back kitchen. I caught the flick. Filed it. "Can I see Rowan's office?" She smiled, tight and polite. "It's locked." I leaned in. "Then open it." Something shifted in her face. A twitch. Then a smile that never reached her eyes. "I'll check." She disappeared behind the curtain. I stood by the host stand, pretending to scroll through my phone. The decor had changed. Less family-run Italian, more trendy pop-up. The walls were lined with fake olive branches and half-lit wine bottles. All show. No spine. When Kelsey returned, she looked relieved. "He says he'll call you." Of course. Back in the car, I plugged into the business license portal. Restaurant, Rowan Group LLC. Owner, not just Rowan. 2 more names. One of them? Ceres Montague. I said her name out loud. It tasted metallic. I knew that name. I'd seen it, wedding guest list, blurred photo, shadow by the lake house. She wasn't family. She wasn't a friend. But she was close enough to know I hadn't been invited. Ceres wasn't a stranger. She was an architect. I got home and poured bourbon at noon. Sometimes, clarity doesn't come with caffeine. It comes with fire. The phone buzzed again. Rowan. I picked up. What's the holdup? He asked. Laughing. Nervous. I didn't answer. I know it's a lot, he said. But you've always been the one who steps up. That line again. Folded in flattery. Framed in guilt. I just need it moved by tomorrow, he added. You know how banks are. Red tape. You'd be cutting days of process. What's the account name? Silence. Then, Ceres Montague Financial. No hesitation. Just boldness. Why not your name? He chuckled. She handles logistics. It's cleaner. Cleaner. Don't be like that. I stared at the bottle in my hand. You ever wonder, I said, why the people who ask for silence are always the loudest when it's convenient? He didn't answer. I hung up. That night, I sent the money. $75,000. Gone with a single click. Why? Because sometimes the only way to follow the thread is to let the spider spin. 3 hours later, the phone buzzed again. Bank alert. A transfer had moved from Rowan Group LLC to CM Holdings, Grand Cayman. Offshore. Immediate. Fast. Clean. No note. Just gone. I sat in the dark with my laptop glowing against my face. Then I closed it. Locked the door. Opened the drawer. Loaded the Glock. If money moved that fast, it wasn't debt. It was disappearance. I walked out to the porch. Lake silent. Trees still. Except one shape didn't match the others. A figure across the waterline. Still. Watching. No flashlight. No movement. Then it blinked. Gone. What if I didn't lend him money but funded something darker? Bank of Westlake. Tuesday. 11:06 a.m. The banker's office smelled like laminate and tension. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, cutting clean shadows on the beige floor. Lennox sat stiff in the plastic leather chair, fingers locked together like a cage. The screen glowed pale blue. I'm just confirming the transfer went where you expected, he said, voice calm. The banker, a man with hair too perfect and a tie too tight, clicked a few keys. Pause. Click. Click. His brow twitched. He leaned in. That transfer you authorized, he said. Lennox nodded. 75,000. To Rowan's restaurant. The banker turned the screen. Actually, it landed in a holding account. Then moved, within 37 minutes, to an offshore entity in Grand Cayman. CM Holdings. Every breath in Lennox's chest collapsed. CM. Ceres Montague. Not a coincidence. A pattern. He stared at the screen. Numbers, names, routing codes. One string highlighted in red. That doesn't make sense, Lennox said, throat dry. It was supposed to be domestic. The banker shrugged. The recipient must have routed it manually. We have no jurisdiction once it hits offshore. Unless there's a legal flag. There will be, Lennox muttered. He stood. Too fast. The chair leg squeaked. Print me that page. Cut to, the Jeep slicing through wet streets. Windshield wipers ticking like a metronome of dread. Phone in his lap. The screen lit up with a search, CM Holdings Grand Cayman, owner. Result, Ceres L. Montague. Secondary contact, Draven Blackwood. Lennox's stomach turned. Blood doesn't run cold. It evaporates. He turned onto the freeway. Hands tight on the wheel. Traffic blurred by. One car, a black Mercedes SUV, hovered in the side mirror. Too steady. No signal. No exit. It followed for 10 miles. Then turned. Coincidence? Maybe. But the lake house creaked too much for him to believe in coincidence anymore. Later that night, he poured whiskey into a chipped glass. Sat in silence. Then opened the filing drawer. Deed. Tax records. Old inspection reports. Lake house documentation. He pulled the most recent appraisal. Paused. Something was off. The appraisal value listed was 12 times what he'd filed with the county. His name was on the envelope. But the signatory? Draven Blackwood. He flipped the page. A contract. A line item labeled maintenance reimbursement. $75,000. Exact. A ghost of a laugh broke from his throat. They dressed it as repayment. A reimbursement for work never done. Fake paper trails. Polished signatures. He'd funded a cover-up. Sometimes, the story's cleanest when the lie is handwritten. Camera shift. Night. Rain tapping the lake house windows. A faint sound. Scraping. Outside. Lennox moved slow. Took the Glock from the drawer. No lights. Just shadow. He crept to the porch. Pulled the door open fast. Nothing. Dark trees. Wet wood. One set of boot prints on the stairs, fresh. Wrong size. Wrong tread. He followed them 3 steps. Then they disappeared into the mud. No car. No flash. No sound. He scanned the tree line. For a heartbeat, one figure stood just beyond the reach of light. Still. Watching. Then gone. He backed into the house. Bolted the door. Reset the locks. Checked the cameras. Later, he reviewed old emails. One thread caught his eye. Subject line, use the lake house account if needed. Sent 3 months ago. From Draven. To Rowan, series. BCC, unknown. He opened the thread. Line 1, reimbursement won't trigger IRS if tied to prior maintenance. Line 2, don't tell Lennox. He'll want receipts. Line 3, route through CM Holdings. Keep optics clean. Lennox stared at the screen. Cold sweat broke between his shoulder blades. They hadn't just used him. They designed it. Family never forgets you. They just forget to need your permission. He sent the email to a backup drive. Then another to his cloud. Then he texted one word to Jolene, meet. Her reply came fast. Where? His fingers hovered over the keys. He typed, somewhere we don't leave footprints. Someone knows I'm looking, and they're not planning to stay invisible much longer. I met Jolene at a coffee shop no one visits twice. Low ceilings. Broken neon sign. Chairs that squeak too loud. Perfect for being forgettable. She wore a hoodie and sunglasses like someone who didn't want to be photographed. Not paranoia. Self-preservation. I slid a flash drive across the table. Emails, bank routing, tax records. Offshore connection. Draven and series are tied in. She didn't touch it yet. You're sure you want to open this box? I'm already inside it. Her jaw tightened. She whispered, this isn't just family fraud. If someone is laundering through a domestic restaurant into a Cayman shell, there are federal implications. Meaning? If you don't protect yourself, you're the patsy. I half smiled. Story of my life. She finally pocketed the drive. Anything else? She asked. Yes. Someone's watching me. Her eyebrows flicked up. Not disbelief, validation. She leaned closer. If you think you're being watched, assume you already are. A line I'd once heard echoed in my head, threat doesn't knock. It waits. Cut. Driving home, the road curved along the lake. Fog crawled across the pavement like pale smoke. My headlights caught empty water and black trees. Too quiet. A car in the rearview mirror. Dark sedan. Same distance. Same angle. No pass. No retreat. It stayed for 9 miles. I made a sudden right into a gas station. So did the sedan. I pulled to the pump. It idled. Lights off. Engine humming. I walked inside and bought a pack of gum I didn't need, just to stay under fluorescent cameras. When I stepped outside, the sedan was gone. Like someone erased it. Cut. The lake house greeted me with silence and pine. I parked with the lights off. Stood still and listened. Wind. Leaves. Something else. I walked the perimeter with the Glock down by my thigh. Porch boards complained under my boots. Air smelled like rain and sap. Behind the shed, something glinted. A camera. Hidden under the gutter line. Not mine. I pulled it down and pocketed it. Whoever planted it would come back for it. That was almost comforting. People only record what they plan to control. Inside, I bolted the doors and sat at the kitchen table. One thought hit me like a hammer: if you stay invisible, someone else writes your ending. Cut. Close to midnight, a knock. Soft. Precise. Not panicked. Measured. I lifted the gun and walked toward the front door, staying in the shadows. The moonlight through the window sliced into the living room like a blade. The knock again. 3 taps. Not forceful. Intentional. I breathed once. Pulled the door open in a single motion. No one. Not even footsteps. Just cold air, a ripple in the trees, and a white envelope on the welcome mat. No stamp. No address. Just my name in black ink. I shut the door and sat on the floor, back to the wall, envelope on my knee. Hand steady. Mind not. I opened it. Inside, a single printed photo. Me. Sitting at my dining table. Laptop open. Bank records on the screen. Shot from outside the window, angled downward, through the reflection of the night. Someone had been close. Close enough to breathe against the glass. Under the photo, a handwritten note. Stop digging. Stop talking. Stop sharing. No one will warn you twice. I stared at the words until they blurred. Fear didn't hit first. Recognition did. This wasn't a threat from a stranger. This was tone. Family tone. The same tone Rowan used when he wanted me silent: don't make this dramatic. The same tone Draven used when erasing me from the wedding: certain things are easier without you. Silence was never calm. Silence was choreography. Cut. The next morning, Jolene called from a blocked number. I checked 2 of the public filings you sent, she said breathlessly. Lake house maintenance reimbursements have been submitted as tax-deductible expenses. That's not legal. No. But it looks legal because the LLC categorized them as business improvements. Someone paired the restaurant books with your property records to make the numbers blend. Meaning? You weren't just used as a guarantor. Your asset was a wash cycle. I paced the hallway, one hand on my forehead. The house seemed to lean in with me. They made it look like you willingly participated, she said. I stopped walking. That's the setup. Yes. If the government looked at the records right now, my fingerprints were everywhere. Lennox Hawthorne, silent partner. Not victim. Accessory. One truth hit hard: when people want you invisible, it's never because you're irrelevant. It's because you're useful without attention. Cut. After sunset, I walked down to the floating dock with a flashlight. Mist drifted across the water. Frogs chirped. The moon smeared a thin silver path across the lake. Halfway down the ramp, I heard a soft splash. Then another. Too heavy for fish. Too close. I turned the light. A ripple. Then stillness. I lowered my voice. Come out. No answer. Just the feeling of eyes below the surface. Watching. Waiting. I stepped backward, gun raised. A twig snapped behind me. I spun. Nothing. Only the shape of trees. I backed into the house and locked every door. My breath felt sharp. My heart didn't slow. I checked the cameras. Front porch. Side trail. Tree line. All clear. But paranoia has its own camera, the one inside your skull. Everything in my life suddenly felt staged. Every signature, every form, every meeting. Rowan's urgency wasn't desperation, it was timing. Ceres wasn't an investor. She was infrastructure. And if they erased me socially without hesitation, financial erasure was just a rehearsal. When silence arrives with warning, danger isn't approaching. It's already inside the room. Rain pounded the roof like gunfire. The lake house shuddered. Inside, the wood groaned under weight. I stood in the hall, heart roaring. I dialed the number quietly. Old law office line. Familiar voice. Miles Trevors. He paused a moment. Lennox. What have you got for me? I exhaled, slow. Everything. The offshore transfer. The hidden maintenance claims. The shell account. He didn't answer for a full beat. Meet me. Downtown. 2 hours. Bring everything digital and hard copy. I agreed. Hung up. The drive downtown, windshield wipers a metronome. Streetlights smeared through the rain. I sensed the SUV before I saw it. Followed me from the bridge. Stayed just behind. No flash. No horn. Just its silhouette. I sped up. Lights off. The SUV disappeared. Or so I thought. Mirrors never lie. I walked into Miles' office. Walls lined with law books, cheap coffee. He pulled out a folder thick with pages. My name was on nearly all. He pointed at a page. This transfer, he said, looks legitimate on paper. But look again. I leaned forward. Printed letterhead, typed amounts, tax codes. Maintenance and repair. I read aloud. Wrong tax category. Repairs don't apply. That's capital improvement. It should be depreciated, not expensed. He tapped the folder. They categorized it to avoid audits. That's textbook fraud. What's worse, they submit it to IRS as deductions. If this gets flagged, you're their scapegoat. You'll be the one under investigation. My chest tightened. Everything narrowed until the folder glowed under fluorescent light. The paper was the trap. The seal. The noose. This isn't just about cash, I muttered. This is about control. Miles closed the folder. You need evidence. Proof the deed was altered. The moment ownership was transferred, the fraud closed the circuit. I nodded, voice quiet. Give me 24 hours. Night came on fast. The lake house waited, cold and empty. I found a flashlight, went to the hidden camera I had ripped from under the gutter weeks ago. I held it up under the dull bulb in the kitchen. The lens caught the light. The casing was cracked. There was rainwater inside, moisture, meaning it had been outside. Someone planted it. To spy. To anticipate. I tucked the camera into a Ziploc bag. Then I opened my laptop. Typed, Call the county recorder. Status of deed for 1235 Lakewood Drive. Hit send. The county office closed at 5 p.m. It was 11:47 p.m. I packed a bag. Documents. Flash drive. Gun. Searched for something I'd held onto for years, my father's old watch. Cold metal. Solid weight. A reminder. I locked the door. Slid the bolt. Double-checked the windows. Then I heard it, crack of breaking glass. Heart stuttered. I snapped off the lights. Darkness swallowed the room. Only the lake visible through the large window. Slow steps. On the porch boards. Someone trying to be silent. I waited. Gun pressed into my palm. Every sense alert. Door handle. Click. Welcome mat shifting. Silhouette in door glass. One breath. Latch rattled. I threw the door open and fired. Cut to the figure collapsing backward into wet wood. The rain splattered. A scream that swallowed the night. Then a body. Pale. Soaked. Limbs still. No movement. No darkness. Just silence. Too loud. I stood above him. He was dressed in black, hood pulled low. No ID. No name. I didn't give a damn. I turned him over. No gun. No wallet. Just a black card, no name, just the logo CM. I pocketed it, closed the door, locked it again. Rain washed the porch. Water pooling at my boots. I caught a trace of a voice inside me. When you stare into darkness long enough, something stares back. The quote echoed. Anonymous. But it fit. The next morning, the county office reopened. I sat in the lobby, wallet empty, hard heavy. Paper sealed. Clerk stamped. I held the certified deed printout. My name. Ink official. Date current. Relief? Not quiet. Fear. Clarity. Ownership confirmed, for now. But the trap had showed its fangs. Miles arrived at the lake house by dusk. He brought a clipboard, battered leather case, a small camcorder. He reviewed the deeds. Nodded once. No one can contest this right away, he said. You have 48 hours to file a complaint. Notify IRS. Notify local district attorney. Request secure hold on property and financial accounts. Then we go public. Public? I echoed. Yes. Exposure is the only immune system left. Silence protects only the guilty. I stared out the window. The lake was flat. But beyond, trees hung still. Watching. I asked, and if they come for me first? He flipped a page. Passport number. Corporate filings. Offshore addresses. Copies on camcorder. Then we fight back. They don't expect witnesses. He handed me the camcorder. Turn the lights off. Use night vision. Drive south to Cascadia. Upload this. Make backup. Then go silent. That night I packed my bag again. Papers. Flash drive. Camcorder. My watch. Gun. A duffel bag zipped tight. I walked out. Locked the door. Took key. Every step felt like breaking a chain. The SUV appeared across the road. Engine idling. Shadow in passenger seat. I didn't look. I walked faster. They didn't follow. Or maybe they just let me think so. Behind me, lake house lights flickered off, one by one. I didn't turn back. If I don't take them down now, I'll disappear like the money did. Lights flashed inside the newsroom. Jolene's hand shook as she hit send. The video file uploaded. The email to the DA and IRS was sent. Every shred of proof, offshore transfers, fake maintenance claims, the hidden camera footage, the doctored deed, all bundled in one public release. Outside, rain drummed on the windows. Perfect backdrop. The phone rang. No caller ID. I answered. Static. Then, "You're making a mistake." I hung up. Sirens. Red and blue streaked across the driveway of the lake house, painting the pine trees in harsh light. Headlights cut long shadows into the night. I stepped out onto the porch, shotgun at my side, jacket dripping. Agents in black coats moved fast. Flashbulbs popped. Cameras recording. Evidence being transferred. Chains clicking on front door. Someone reading me rights through a bullhorn. But they weren't arresting me. They were seizing the house. Sealing it. Forensic team swarmed inside. Photos. Bags. Tape. Miles stood behind an agent. His face calm. Professional. He nodded at me, "You did it right." In the rain, the house echoed. Doors locked, windows boarded. They dragged out two men in handcuffs, Ceres Montague and Draven Blackwood. Faces pale, suits drenched. Cameras flashed. People shouted. Media closed in. Rowan never came. He was already gone, long before I hit send. Inside the car, I leaned back. Water pooled under my boots. The lake house behind bars. The forest silent. The wind cold. Jolene sat beside me. She pulled off her sunglasses. Eyes red-rimmed but alive. She whispered, "Dry, they'll indict in 36 hours. The firm's frozen. Offshore assets frozen. No movement." I exhaled slow. "Then we wait," I said. Her voice cracked. "You okay?" I looked out at the dark water. Moonlight fractured on ripples. Calm, but restless. I nodded. "I survived them. I took back what they stole." She touched my arm. Not sympathy. A pact. 2 weeks later, real estate records filed. The deed, real, valid, with my name. Lake house returned. Official. Legal. I drove up the gravel road again. Headlights cut through mist. The door opened with a creak like a sigh. Inside, silence. Cold wood. Wet pine smell. Ghosts of threats passed hanging in the air. I turned on a lamp. Dust motes floated. Water dripped somewhere upstairs. The house breathed. I walked to the porch and stood under cloudy sky. Stars hidden. Wind quiet. I remembered something Dad used to say when storms hit, "A house built of nails and boards can survive a gale. But only if you don't let the foundation rot." I closed my eyes. Thought of those years fixing shingles, plumbing, winterizing, alone. For love. For hope. Not for a loophole. I opened the glove box. Pulled out a small envelope. Inside, the black CM card, the hooded man's wallet, a USB drive labeled Lake House Audio. I set them on the porch railing. Then dropped a match. Fire blossomed, small and swift. Paper curled, edges blackened, then turned ash. Wallet gone. Card melted. USB, nothing left. The memory burned, the threat removed. Or at least buried. That night, I walked down to the dock. Water was still. Cold. Reflecting nothing but stars I couldn't see. I tossed the ashes into the lake. They sank slowly, drifting under the surface. I thought of silence. Of erasure. Of being deleted once. Family blood isn't always ink and signatures. Sometimes it's the silence between calls. The absence in photographs. The hush when money changes hands. Truth doesn't need family approval. Truth doesn't need their comfort. I closed my eyes. For a moment, the water shimmered. Then calm returned. I opened them. The lake house was mine. Always was. I whispered to the dark water, "You can't drown someone holding a match." And walked back to the house. They buried me once. They won't get a second chance.